Chicago Med's original star return doesn't make up for a shocking cast exit. Chicago Med is losing an original star and bringing one back in season 11, and although the show is seemingly trying to, the latter doesn't balance out the former. The medical drama's cast has vastly changed throughout its run. It doesn't look the same as it did when it premiered in 2015, and the changes will just keep coming as Chicago Med continues. The original cast has been all but decimated as only 3 stars remained as of the Chicago Med Season 10 final. Marlene Barrett as Maggie Lockwood, S. Epatha Merkerson as Sharon Goodwin, and Oliver Platt as Dr. Daniel Charles. Everyone else has exited the series. Unfortunately, one of the 3 will be joining the departed cast in Chicago Med Season 11. Marlene Barrett, who has played Maggie Lockwood in Chicago Med since Season 1, is leaving ahead of Season 11, according to a report from Deadline. Fans first met Barrett's character, who is the charge nurse in Gaffney Chicago Med Center's emergency department, in the NBC TV show's series premiere. She was fierce, strong-willed, passionate, and protective. She hasn't changed much since then. Unfortunately, the audience and the other Chicago Med characters must bid Maggie farewell when the medical drama returns with its 11th season in the fall of 2025. The good news is that Barrett's exit is reportedly considered to be temporary, at least for now. The writers and producers are evidently remaining hopeful that Barrett will eventually come back as Maggie. It's unknown what reasoning Chicago Med will use to explain Maggie's absence in Season 11. Given that the show doesn't plan on her exit being permanent, fans can rest assured that Barrett's character won't die. However, Maggie's big story in Season 10 revolved around tension between the hospital board and the nurses' union, so perhaps that'll play a factor in her departure. While Barrett is leaving, Chicago Med original star Nick Gelfus is returning for Season 11. Gelfus first appeared as Dr. Will Halstead in Chicago PD Season 2, Episode 17, as he is Jay Halstead's brother. Shortly after, the actor became a series regular in the NBC medical drama. He stayed there for 8 seasons before bidding farewell to Chicago Med in 2023. Chicago Med Season 8 ended with Will taking the blame for sabotaging, or 2.0, and resigning from his position at Gaffney. Afterward, he left Chicago and moved to Seattle. There he reunited with his one true love, Natalie Manning, and her son, Owen. Although his exit was heartbreaking, Will got his happily ever after, which is all anyone can ask for. Now Gelfus is set to return in a guest-starring role. But by the sound of it, he should appear in more than one episode, and after learning that Barrett was leaving Chicago Med ahead of Season 11, it also seems like the show is trying to trade her for Gelfus. That's not how that works though. Maggie and Will aren't interchangeable characters. It looks like Chicago Med is essentially only bringing Will back to make up for the loss of Maggie. However, as fans know, Maggie and Will are 2 completely different characters. It's not like Will's return can make viewers forget about Maggie's exit, especially because they have 2 contrasting roles in medicine. Will is an attending physician, while Maggie is a charge nurse. Sure, Will's limited appearance in Chicago Med Season 11 can briefly distract fans from Maggie's absence. However, Maggie will be missed no matter what. They can bring in a departed original character, but that doesn't erase the fact that Maggie has been a steady presence in the series since its inception. It's going to take time to get used to her not being there. Plus, Gaffney Chicago Medical Center still needs to find a permanent replacement for Maggie. Will can't be the emergency department's charge nurse after all. He could be a visiting physician, but he could never do what Maggie did. As such, Chicago Med must either cast someone new to step into Maggie's role or promote an already established character, like Doris Perez. Only time will tell how Maggie will leave Gaffney, who will replace her, and how Will fits into this mess. Whatever happens, we know that the door will remain open for Maggie's return, similar to how Will left. Her exit should tease the possibility of her rejoining her colleagues at Gaffney one day, so right when an original cast member returns, another is leaving. Despite the timing, the One Chicago TV show can't expect Will's special guest appearance to cancel out Maggie's departure. Hopefully, Chicago Med will acknowledge as much when Season 11 premieres. Chicago Med Season 11 premieres on Wednesday, October 1, at 8 p.m. ET on NBC. The rest of the One Chicago universe will follow on the same night, with Chicago Fire Season 14 debuting at 9 p.m. ET and Chicago PD Season 13 airing at 10 p.m. First premiered in 2015, it was billed as the medical heart of Dick Wolf's ever-expanding One Chicago franchise. With its blend of fast-paced ER drama, messy personal lives, and crossovers with Chicago Fire and Chicago PD, the series quickly established a loyal fan base. Part of what made Chicago Med click right away was its original cast, an ensemble that balanced veteran performers with rising stars, all embodying characters fans could root for, cry with, and get angry at in equal measure. But in recent years, the series has struggled with what many fans call cast whiplash. Characters exit abruptly, fan favorites disappear without proper send-offs, and new faces are thrown into the mix only for them to vanish just as quickly. So while the news of an original star returning to Chicago Med might have thrilled longtime viewers, the reality is that one return alone doesn't erase the shockwaves caused by yet another round of departures and recasts. A homecoming worth celebrating, but with caveats. Seeing a familiar face from Season 1 step back into Gaffney Chicago Medical Center feels like stepping into a time machine. Original stars hold a special place in the fandom because they represent the foundation of the show. Their storylines are often intertwined with the early days when viewers were first getting attached to Med's unique rhythm and tone. The problem? A single return feels less like a triumphant homecoming and more like a patch placed on a much larger wound. While fans were celebrating the nostalgia, behind the curtain, the cast list was going through yet another shakeup. Just as viewers were getting comfortable with recent additions, producers announced a surprising cast shift that has left the fandom reeling. The shocking cast change. Over the years, Chicago Med has developed a pattern: introduce compelling new characters, build their arcs just enough for fans to care, and then yank them away without warning. This latest change, however, hit especially hard because the character exiting had been given significant storylines and strong chemistry with the rest of the cast. Fans had invested in this doctor, or nurse, or surgeon because they brought a new energy to the show. In many ways, they felt like the future of Chicago Med. So to lose them while being told, "Don't worry, an old favorite is back," felt less like a gift and more like a bait and switch. It's almost as if the producers underestimated how much the fandom had connected with the current roster. Nostalgia is powerful, yes, but television thrives on growth, evolution, and new dynamics. You can't keep resetting a show by leaning on the past while pulling the rug out from under the present. Nostalgia versus progress. There's no denying that having an original cast member walk back through those hospital doors tugs at the heartstrings. Their return brings callbacks, inside jokes, and maybe even unfinished storylines that fans wanted resolved years ago. But nostalgia is a tricky thing. It can only carry a series so far before it starts feeling hollow. For Chicago Med to keep thriving, it can't rely solely on the comfort of old faces. The real emotional investment lies in watching characters grow, change, and stay long enough for their arcs to feel meaningful. When the revolving door of exits and returns keeps spinning, fans are left asking themselves, why bother investing at all? The ripple effect across One Chicago. One of the reasons One Chicago has been so successful is the way its shows interconnect. Doctors treat firefighters pulled from blazing buildings. Police officers escort victims into the ER. Characters cross over seamlessly, creating a shared universe that feels lived in and real. But when a cast shift hits Chicago Med, it doesn't just affect the medical drama, it ripples across Fire and PD. Suddenly, crossovers feel uneven because the character who had strong ties to the other shows is gone. That synergy gets disrupted, and the overall One Chicago brand loses some of its magic. Fans react with mixed emotions. On social media, reactions to the original star's return and the shocking cast change were deeply divided. Some fans were thrilled to see a familiar favorite back in Scrubs, calling it a return to form. Others were furious, pointing out that the constant exits have made it nearly impossible to stay invested.